So let's dive into that a little deeper here because major players in this conflict obviously are Turkey and Iran. How does this change the power structure of the Middle East?
So I think that it's a very bad week for the Iranian regime, for the Russian Federation, for Hezbollah, and for the allies of this axis of evil that exists in the Middle East. It's not a good week for them, very bad. They have lost, this strategic investment. The Russians and the Iranians, each from their own side and from their own objectives, have invested years and trillions of dollars into propping up the Assad regime. They fought and defended the regime from 2011 when the first Syrian war erupted, and they were absolutely instrumental in keeping Assad in place during those years, and now that is lost. What this means for the Middle East is that there's a chance of a very much weakened Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon. Why so? Because they are absolutely dependent on the delivery of weapons and money and personnel from Iran via Syria into Lebanon. Now, if Syria isn't the same highway of weapons that it used to be, and if they won't be able to travel there, then Hezbollah in Lebanon is weakened. What does that mean for Lebanon? It could mean that other parts of the Lebanese society, Sunnis and Christians and Druze, may rise up and say, we want to reclaim Lebanon. We want Lebanon to be Lebanese, and we don't want these foreign Iranian meddling in our affairs. And that may be something that we will see in the coming months and year ahead. Something that I think we should all be very concerned about is the stability of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. They are under tremendous jihadi and Palestinian pressure to begin with. And we know that when there's chaos and anarchy in one area, in a neighbor state, that has a tendency to spill over. And it may happen in Jordan. If it does, that could be a major disruptor of regional order, and that could open up a whole Pandora's box of trouble for the West, for the US, for Israel, and for other countries. I think I'm so far impressed with the Jordanian security forces' capacity to defend themselves, but they are under quite a lot of pressure, and we'll be monitoring that quickly. And last thing that I'd say is the proliferation of chemical and strategic weapons. What's happening in Syria now is that the regime fell. The Syrian regime had lots and lots of chemical and very lethal weapons that are on the top wish list of almost all of the terrorists around the world. Surface-to-air missiles and long-range missiles and anti-tank missiles and chemical weapons. What Israel has been doing over the last 24 hours is basically the heavy lifting for the world and taking out those weapons so that they don't fall in the hands of terrorists and don't make it to the free black market of terrorists around the world. Israel is doing it out of an Israeli incentive to keep ourselves safe, but I think it's very important that these weapons that were already in very wrong hands of the Syrian regime don't circulate on the market and find themselves being fired at, commercial airliners around the world, for example.
It sounds like from what you're saying, we're at a real inflection point, and there are a lot of moving pieces throughout the Middle East we need to be cognizant of. But as Assad's regime fell on Saturday, I want to read what you posted, and if we could dive a little deeper there. You wrote this, quote, "The irony. Hamas, by launching the massacre on Israel on October 7th, started the chain reaction that led to Assad's fall. They thought Israel would crumble and fall, but it's the Iranian dominoes that are falling, and this isn't the end of that chain reaction." So A, what is Iran thinking right now? And B, what do you think the end of that chain reaction is?
The end of that chain reaction is the fall of the Iranian regime. That is where that chain reaction will end. I don't know how long it will take. And I know that it'll take a lot of effort to get there for the Iranian people to rise up against the Iranian regime. But I know that there is tremendous energy behind that. And I know that there is tremendous resentment and hatred by the Iranian people against the oppressive Iranian regime. And I think that the Iranian strategy, you asked what the Iranians are thinking now, they are in damage assessment and damage control mode. They're trying to stem the tide here. From an Iranian perspective, when we zoom out and look at the last 14 months, I think that they were pretty happy with reality on October the 7th and for the main months after October the 7th. They were seeing Israel suffer, bogged down in a war in Gaza, and they were seeing two of their proxies attack Israel directly, and another proxy, the Houthis in Yemen, doing the same. And I think that they thought that they were quite on a roll. Now, 14 months after, Hamas destroyed and without military capabilities, Hezbollah disabled, and Syria no longer a puppet in their ring of fire around Israel, is not a good situation for the Iranians. And I'm quite sure that they're feeling a very strange tingling of fear for their own regime when it comes to what's going on in Iran. So where this will go from now, I think it presents the West, it presents Saudi Arabia, Israel, the US, and other more moderate countries in the region with an opportunity to apply pressure on the Iranian regime, to limit their ability to continue to spread weapons and violence and terror in the region, and to roll back that regime and to help the Iranian people rise up against it. That is really what the fall of Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian regime means on a regional level. And I think that this is the beginning of a good opportunity. Hopefully, in a few years, we will see a totally different Middle East that is focused on prosperity, on peace, on building bridges between different countries and on working together, not on terrorism, not on fighting, and where we won't have news from the Middle East of suffering people and destruction, but about creativity and good things.